Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I cannot begin to believe that I'm sat down talking to you about this news, about this show, at this venue. It blows my mind. Oh my god, hey, welcome back to my Stagey YouTube channel. If you're meeting me for the first time, hello, my name is MickeyJo and I am obsessed with all things theatre. I am a theatre critic and pundit based here in the UK, and I am a stagey content creator on YouTube. And we're here today to talk about the Lord of the Rings musical. There is a Lord of the Rings musical. It has been produced before. It has a very interesting history, and it is coming back. It's going to be revived for the first time in the UK this summer. But this production is going to be completely different from the one that was originally seen in Toronto and in the UK. We're going to talk about why that is going to be as well. So stay tuned for all of the details. Honestly, this is completely crazy news. I got wind a little while ago that the Watermill were going to be announcing something big. As a venue, they recently lost their funding. If you don't know, this is something in the UK where various theatre organisations around the country receive a certain amount of funding from the Arts Council, from the government, and the Watermill was one of a few venues whose funding was entirely cut, with very little explanation given as to why. And this has motivated them as a venue to have to make more commercial decisions and maybe take some big swings. And this is the biggest swing I think I could possibly have envisioned for this charming little venue in Berkshire. The fact that they're doing Lord of the Rings, I mean, weirdly, it kind of works in my head, but it is also insane. We're going to talk about why in today's video, but my mind is already pre-blown before we even get there. Just know that. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to subscribe to my Stagey YouTube channel for more reviews and punditry and theatrical observations. And you can also sign up to become one of my exclusive members at the link in the description for just £2.99 a month. Now, let's talk about the Lord of the Rings musical coming back to Berkshire. That's a sentence. That's a sentence I just said. So I'm actually very excited about this news because I grew up loving Lord of the Rings. I loved the movies. I had a big Orlando Bloom as Legolas poster on my bedroom door. Now you could read other things into that as well, but also it was because I loved the film. I had figures, I had the Helm's Deep playset, it was amazing, but my knowledge of the show is actually very limited. I have never really looked into the show because I was a really big fan of the films, and at the time when the show was happening, I was alive, but I was not as engaged a theatre goer as I am now. I also think I was 12, so that's my excuse, at least. I wasn't 12, I was 11. See, I had a lot of stuff going on. But to give you a brief overview, which is not the documentary length explanation that this historic flop deserves, but the Lord of the Rings musical began its life in Toronto, and at the time, it was insanely expensive. It cost approximately 30 million Canadian dollars. It was a 3-act show with a duration of more than 3.5 hours and a cast of 65 actors. Try and envision the scale that we are talking about here. I mean, it's a huge undertaking. It's this epic story that was adapted for a trilogy of films. It's all of these different fantasy worlds, all these different locations, these different political undercurrents within this fantasy world. It's an enormous thing to adapt for a single stage show. The music is by A.R. Rahman, Vertine, and Christopher Nightingale, and the book and lyrics are by Sean McKenna and Matthew Warchus. Matthew Warchus, who has gone on to become the artistic director of the Old Vic, and is also best known, perhaps, for directing both the stage and film versions of the musical Matilda. By the time the show transferred to the West End in June 2007, the cast had been reduced to 50 actors, the budget £12 million, at the time one of the most expensive musicals ever produced in the West End, and it was nominated for a handful of awards. Here we go, 7 What's on Stage Theatregoers' Choice Awards in 2007, 5 Olivier Awards in 2008, including its book, lyrics, lighting, set and costumes and sound. But after just over 13 months and 492 performances, the production closed in 2008. The Times called it a brave, stirring, epic piece of popular theatre, and The Guardian gave it a 4-star review. It called it hugely impressive. Certainly, the visuals definitely made an impact, and when I hear people talking about Lord of the Rings, the musical, today, they talk about these incredible sets and these striking visuals, and we just heard it was nominated for a bunch of awards for all of its aesthetic and design elements. However, the other thing that I've always heard talked about with Lord of the Rings was how dangerous the production was as well. So this set was so huge and complex, it came with its own problems. And in May 2007, the show had to be halted when, during one performance, one of the members of the cast got his leg stuck in between two moving set pieces. Amazingly, the leg was not actually broken, even though it was trapped between hydraulics, but this has very much lingered with the memory of the show and is one of the factors into perhaps why it hasn't been revived. I mean, when something is such an enormous financial flop, people don't readily set out to produce it again. The other reason for this will have been the availability of the rights to actually produce it on stage, but clearly something has happened to make it possible once again, because the show is coming back, but in a very different way. When I got wind of the fact that the Watermill were going to be doing something exciting, I started to think about it, and I did think, what if they're doing The Lord of the Rings? Because in a way the vibe of it works for the venue, but it's such an enormous undertaking, and the scale of what we associate with this show and the scale of what we know this venue to be are so at odds with each other, it invites a lot of follow-up questions. So, the Watermill Theatre in Newbury in Berkshire. How to explain the Watermill? It's this incredibly charming converted mill. They have a restaurant on site as well. They have a little stream running up to it. It's a little bit remote to get to, but it's an incredibly delightful venue, and they specialize in doing actor-musician shows when they're producing musicals. They produce other things as well as musicals, but when they're making musicals, they do actor-musician shows. This is largely because it's a very intimate space, and there isn't actually anywhere else for them to put musicians. So the production of Amelie here in the UK started its life at the Watermill before embarking on a UK tour and eventually ending up in the West End at venues like the Other Palace and the Criterion Theatre. They recently produced a revival of Whistle Down the Wind last summer. I reviewed that here on my channel. You can go and check out the video. But they do have a reputation for creating shows of sort of mesmerizing, magical quality. And in that sense, Lord of the Rings is kind of synonymous with the vibe of this venue. You know, you're in the outdoors, you're in the countryside, you can practically hear the folk music playing on the wind, and the sort of magical, ethereal, woodland nature of Lord of the Rings plays very well into that. But the majestic scale of it is not something you would readily associate with this venue. However, during COVID-19, when many different theatres were looking for ways to still put on performances during lockdown and they weren't able to hold indoors gatherings, the Watermill Theatre was one of a few that managed to find a way to hold outdoor performances, and they had an outdoor concert version of the musical Camelot. It seems, for Lord of the Rings, that they will once again be utilising an outdoor space, but not exclusively. So let me read you some of the details from this press release, because it does bear looking into. Here we go. The Watermill's epic and intimate immersive summer musical. Those words are completely contradictory, and I'm already fascinated. With the production set across both the Watermill Auditorium, so that's the actual indoors of the venue itself, and gardens, audiences will be immersed in the magical landscape of Tolkien, joining an ensemble cast and large-scale puppets on an epic journey celebrating the power of friendship and common goodness to conquer unimaginable evil. And it will play at the Watermill from Tuesday the 25th of July until Sunday the 15th of October. Paul Hart, the artistic director for the venue, said, "Our production of The Lord of the Rings will take audiences from the lush idyll of the Shire in our gardens to the darkest depths of the cracks of doom. You may be wondering how we're going to fit this huge show in our 200-seat theatre. Come and witness the impossible." So by the sounds of it, they're going to be utilising the outdoor space around the venue to immerse audiences in the Shire, which is the land where we begin and end The Lord of the Rings. If you don't know The Lord of the Rings, this is where the hobbits live, and it's this very charming, idyllic, outdoors, countryside sort of a fantasy landscape, and it sounds like they're going to be conjuring that up around the grounds of the Watermill Theatre. I'm very excited for this. But then when you go into the theatre, it's going to take us to all these different destinations. I still have questions about how this is going to be feasible, but I would imagine it will be with an actor-musician cast, because that's what is feasible within the venue. They're talking about using large-scale puppets. One charming thing about the Watermill Theatre is you usually get ducks and geese sort of roaming around. I hope they make that part of the show, honestly. But it sounds like it won't just be a pre-show sort of a promenade experience like you currently have at Cabaret, where you walk around the Kit Kat Club before sitting down to see the whole show, it does sound like part of the show itself is going to take place outdoors. I have follow-up questions to this because, if you heard me say, the show is running until mid-October, and the UK weather is not kind to outdoor productions. So I'm curious about whether any kind of contingency plans are in place, or if they are just going to be advising audiences to bring all-weather clothes. Whether this outdoor element is going to be seated or going to be promenade, which is where you as an audience sort of walk through different elements of the staging, I don't know, but again, the word immersive is being used. We're seeing this a lot recently, if you haven't noticed. A lot of new productions have this immersive quality, so Cabaret is the big success of London right now, offering audiences an immersive experience of the Kit Kat Club before they arrive in the auditorium. Guys and Dolls is set to open next week at the Bridge Theatre. This is a new immersive staging of the show. The first UK production of Newsies also offers an immersive element as well, with members of the cast running through the audience and giving audiences a little bit of flavour of the production as they are walking through to their seats, with a set that kind of wraps around three sides of the front portion of the auditorium. But I am absolutely fascinated by what they are going to do with this. I cannot wait to hear about casting. I cannot wait to see visuals. I think this could be the most exciting thing happening in UK theatre this year. It's a tremendous move from the Watermill to be bringing back this show, this show that is sort of famed in legend and hasn't been seen since. You know, they tried to produce an arena tour around a decade ago. That never got off the ground, and now finally it's back in the hands of the Watermill Theatre, these plucky, amazing theatre makers. I am so excited, and my mind can't even process how they're going to begin to put all of this together. But if you have any thoughts whatsoever, let me know in the comments section down below. What are you looking forward to about The Lord of the Rings at the Watermill Theatre? Did you see the original production? If so, I specifically want to hear from you today. I would love to know more about this show and what people remember from it. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my Stagey YouTube channel for plenty more content coming very soon about all your favourite shows. I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a stagey day.
For 10 more seconds, I'm MickeyJoTheatre. Oh my god, hey, thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!